Welcome to episode number 10 of the Heroes Journal podcast.
Double digits.
2.5 months. 10 weeks.
Every week.
Every week for
exciting.
10 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done anything every week for 10 weeks.
No?
Maybe.
There's probably something.
I mean, I've had jobs.
I mean, you're a college athlete. I'm sure
I
there
guess
was something you did. Yeah, this is the 10th episode we've ever done, which is kind of exciting. A long time ago, we tried to start a podcast, and we couldn't ever get consistency with it. We never really had like a clear vision for it. So whether the podcast format stays like this or changes, I'm so proud of us for doing this many episodes.
It's true. I mean, we tried to script an entire podcast.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah, it was a different time in the business. But think about this. How many how many two white guys have a conversation that's like, we should start a podcast, and then they start a podcast? I would love to see a graph that's like,
how many episodes they do?
Yeah, it's like how many guys make it to like the 10 episode mark? How many people that are like, we should start a podcast, get to the 10 episode mark?
I'll give myself pats on the back once we get to like 100. I think that's...
I mean, why not both?
That's probably...
I'm just saying I want to see the analytics because I think that'd be funny.
I guess that's fair. Yeah. I don't know if it's out there. I don't think we have to bring race or gender into it. I think just making a podcast is just hard in general. So
I guess that's fair. That's honestly kind of entrepreneurship in general. It's like a lot of ideas, not a lot of execution.
It's a war of attrition.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, it's in the infinite game, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, we've been just drinking all of the entrepreneurship Kool-Aid for like the last month.
That's true.
Because we made this, though it was already happening, we made the conscious decision to lean into it of being a company, not a product.
Yeah.
Is it a conscious decision, or is it or do you think that's a perspective change? Maybe that's a better way to describe it.
I think it's a necessary growing pain, I guess. Like it's so much easier to just like isolate and focus in on like, oh, we're just going to do this one product. We're just going to do one thing. It's a really mature move and a difficult move, but I think it like involves a lot of growing pains because you have to take on more responsibility. You have to start to envision like doubling or tripling your employees. You have to think about more products. You have to think about bringing in more revenue, not running out of money. Then you have to think about like having a good culture and doing good in the world. I mean, there's so many things you have to start thinking about. You know, when you're a product, you're like, are we going to survive? Can we keep our margins tight? You know, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes to all of that.
It's a different ballgame, you know?
But this is a thought I had today. I guess for transparency, Nick watched this YouTube interview. It's like 5 years old.
I think it came out in 2018. So
it's not that old. Okay. Yeah. So it's 2 years old.
Yeah.
It is with the founder of Airbnb. I think his name is Brian Chesky.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
So that guys, I watched that today. I watched an hour of the hour and 30 minutes, and I watched it today, and it's a lot of thoughts have been bouncing through my head. But on top of that, something I've been thinking about, and it kind of reframed it in a way, is when you're a product company, which we were before, like it's product, then company, then now we're like company with a product.
Yeah.
You have to think like, what does my product do? And like, what do I hope my product does?
Yeah.
Right. Which is great. I mean, that's not a bad thing. But when you switch to like a company product, you think about like, what do I stand for? Which is a very different conversation to have internally with your head. It's like, yeah. I made this thing that like helps people think of themselves as a hero. And it's like, the thing does that, and it's really great and it's really cool. But like, what do I stand for? Like, I stand for people seeing themselves as a hero, and more people need to do that at any means necessary.
Yeah. Which
is very different. It's a lot more intense.
The goal changes, you know?
Yeah.
And it has to. Like, I mean, maybe the goal doesn't change, but like the goal might always be forward progress. But it's like maybe when you're a product, you're just trying to get a first down, and then you become a company and you're trying to get to a touchdown, and then you become bigger, and it's like
Super Bowl.
We're trying to win the game. I was getting this Super Bowl, but
sorry, my bad.
You know, that's good. You picked up on the metaphor.
Yeah,
I think it's more like that. I think you're always headed in the same direction, but you have to mature at some point if you want to continue to progress to the finals and There's a fantasy team. I mean, it gets really complicated. But, my point is I don't know if it's quite as black and white as like, oh, we're a product and now we're a company. I think the thing I really enjoy about the Airbnb lecture, I think it's at Stanford, but is that he kind of talks about being extremely product focused as a company, which like he doesn't really seem to be a lot of separation between that. He's kind of like, we designed this product, and everyone we hire is like hyper focused on creating the best product possible. Now they're in software, they're in a super competitive and different kind of industry than we, are for sure. They probably had to hire a lot more people quicker, funding, all that stuff. Super different story. But to this day, it seems like they're still just extremely focused on the actual product. And that's because Brian, who's the CEO, he's a designer by trade. So
what's a really interesting nuance of that? A really interesting nuance of that video is the guy interviewing him, Reid Hoffman. He's like a billionaire.
Yeah, he invested in him.
Yeah. He was their investor, but he's also like a teacher at Stanford. Yep. It was really interesting, right? Because you have Reid Hoffman, who is in his own right extremely extremely successful.
Yeah,
has done a lot of really cool things. I think he was an executive at PayPal. Yep, PayPal. A lot of the pay words.
Some money transferring platform.
There is an argument to be made that he should be the one being interviewed, right? Like, yeah. And he's sitting there and he's giving a very thoughtful and a very kind interview to this person who
he really lets him go.
Yeah, is like new to the world that he's been living in for 20 years, right?
Yeah, I slowly connected the dots because like as the interview goes on, at first I'm kind of like, because I'd heard the name Reid Hoffman before, but I didn't know who it was, and then as like the interview went on, like they got like a little more chummy where it's like like we're like buddies outside of this interview, like I'm not just like some person kind of like moderating this like interview. I'm like your mentor in a way. And then the comments, like everyone's like, man, Reid is a super good interviewer. He just lets people talk. And I was like, okay, so what? But then after like you realize like, holy crap, he's like, that's probably the reason it's like this whole Stanford series. It's probably the reason you have all these different CEOs that are able to come, because he probably owns a part of their company,
Yeah. Or just like a good friend and they're doing him a favor or something along those lines. But yeah, it's super insightful. Super, super insightful.
Yeah. I'm watching a different one. So I'll probably just make the way. It's kind of funny is they have one. I don't know her name, and even worse, I don't know the name of the company, but it's the girl. You're gonna know who she is. They have a lecture from the girl that had that scandal.
Oh, the Bad Blood scandal.
The documentary is called Bad Blood, I think.
Yeah.
I forgot the company was. But I think it's like home test kits. She like basically claimed she raised tons of capital and claimed to be able to take advantage of a technology that I don't think was real yet, or at least not proven. And she made all these false claims, but it's still up on the internet. And people came in here like, this didn't age very well.
Yeah.
It's pretty terrible.
mean, it's crazy. I don't know. So it's like, we're not like tech entrepreneurs. We're not we're not like Silicon Valley bros. We're not doing all like the crazy, like quarterly parties and stuff. And the thing that was nice about like the Airbnb story is it didn't seem like they were either. It seemed like the way that he described himself, and obviously he could be doing a little bit of press in that regard, but it's like the way he described himself was someone who just like really wanted to do something. He really actually to me seemed super likable. Yeah. Which you kind of have to be, if you're in that kind of position, I assume. But yeah, he seemed to be way more about like, I like went to school to study art and then I ended up here kind of a thing. As like a founder, I just got really lucky, as opposed to like, I went to some Ivy League school, studied this, knew I wanted to start a company, got a bunch of seed funding. Like their story about cereal is like one of my favorite. Oh yeah. Serial entrepreneur. Yeah. How does it go? Because I mean, I know you watch it like today. Yeah. So they had a really difficult time. Not difficult time makes it sound like they did it. They didn't get any funding at first. People would like laugh at them. Yeah. They're like even worse. They didn't get any funding at first. We're just like retelling a podcast. We could just link it in here and then just call it an 8-minute podcast.
Well, I think we have a point that we're trying to get to.
So they had like no money. They whiffed on all of their pitch meetings, and they were their entire business model was based off of conferences, big events, right. Which sound unheard of in 2020, but just goes to show Airbnb would not have started in 2020. And so they targeted the like the Republican National Convention, the RNC, DNC.
That's what it was.
And they did well for those two days, where they were like, we have no customers for the other days of the year. Yeah. So they targeted the inauguration of Barack Obama in 2008.
Yeah.
So then, so they targeted the election, where they made like Obama O's, and they made like I think they made one for Mitt Romney as well.
That's what it was. Yeah. It is. I think so. I don't know. It was something like that.
But anyways, yeah.
You had this company that was like trying to figure out how to be an Airbnb, like an air bed and breakfast, and then
the funny part was
they're making no money, so then they ended up making cereal.
They said there was a joke, because they said, we're not doing very good on the bed part, so maybe let's focus on breakfast. Yeah. That's right. That was their line, right? That was like the
so funny.
But so this is the part that I took from that story. I think that novelty goes a long way, right? They pretty much made merch. Yeah. And they did like one of the biggest merch sales for whatever it was, right?
It's like $30,000. Which kept them alive at the time. You imagine that?
But the part that I love about it is they got laughed out from like General Mills. They got laughed out of the thing. They wanted to make this thing, and General Mills was like, "You're ridiculous." They went to other like mid-level cereal companies, and they were like, "We want a $200,000 down, like $200,000 deposit," and they were like, "We don't have that." So they went to somebody who had like I think he had like a print shop or something along those lines. Someone they knew. They said, "Fine, I'll print you 1,000 for free. I just want royalties." Oh. Right. It's like there's this weird in it kind of, if you want to take a correlation between that and the Hero's Journal, it's kind of like the Kickstarter vibe, right? It's like we'll take a chance on you. Yeah. But we're gonna like, it's just like it's very, very minimal. Yeah. Very, very minimal. And just like it's kind of like every once in a while the world will give you an inch and they'll see what you can do with it. Right.
Yeah, they like it didn't really ever feel like anything fell in their lap until they were well on their way to success. Yeah, because what did he say at the beginning? He's like, all the investors have ever invested in Airbnb say it's like the worst idea, or it's the best idea that shouldn't have worked.
No, worst idea that worked.
The worst idea that worked. Like people still think it's absurd that it worked. But I think you're right. I think it was the absolute like insistence and like resourcefulness and resilience of the founders to just do something, right? Like it's so entrepreneurial. It's so like, okay, the rules changed. Like, okay, the air part isn't working. Let's try breakfast. Like pivoting that way, and then to end up where they are now is like it's pretty phenomenal. But anyway, I thought it was super interesting. One thing I really like about that interview is he talks about their expectation of their culture, which is that everyone's a host. And they go through like they go through cultural interviews before they ever go through technical interviews, like when they're hiring people into Airbnb, because they're trying to protect like this culture. And you kind of came to me this morning with like sort of a parameter. There's nothing written in stone yet, but I think it's really interesting. I kind of wanted to talk to you about it here on the podcast. Tell the people, what did you bring to me this morning?
Well, I had a lot of things I brought to you this morning. I think you're talking about don't be a bully.
Yeah, I was talking about that.
Okay, cool. I talk a lot, so there's a lot of potential things I could have said. But yeah, I think don't be a bully is, it's difficult, right? Because a core tenant should never be a negative, right? It should never be like a don't be a. It should be like be a.
Unless you're Google.
Yeah.
Which is don't be evil. We don't have the power to be evil.
Yeah. So with that, it's either like always be a hero, always be an ally, or don't be a bully. Whatever it is, along those lines, the core of it is to never make someone feel bad about the amount of things they're getting done in any particular day.
Right.
Yeah. And it's really kind of opened up my mind to like different product ideas, product things that won't work because of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
It's interesting because to my point earlier, what we can, it maybe it grows or not, but it's like the idea of like we have to find something to stand on now, like what we stand for versus what our product does.
Right.
That's like I think that's been the big mission, and that gave me a level of clarity of like what we stand for.
Mm-hmm.
We stand for people being heroes, which means that we're not going to bully them into thinking there's something that they're not.
Yeah.
Right.
It is pretty astounding the amount of I call it like shame-based productivity that it's kind of woven into so much of what we see as productive, like as a society, right? Like whether it's staying late to work or whether it's waking up at 4 a.m. to like, or it's time blocking or like getting really deep into productivity. Like there's nothing wrong with maximizing the time that the day is giving you. But so often it's just like people take that and they run with it without ever accounting for like mental health, proper rest, like balance. And you're right. Like it feels like you end up creating these people that become, they're either bullies to other people for like not being productive or because they held them back from being productive, or they're bullies to themselves because like they're never productive enough. They're never as hardworking as like Steve Jobs or like, whatever. And, I don't know, like when you said it this morning, I was like, that's a really good thing to say out loud. It might not end up being the actual core tenet of like what that represents in our core statements, whatever. That was just a bunch of jargon. But I mean, the thought behind it is really, really important. Like we don't want to throw another journal onto that pile of like drill sergeant, shame-based, like, and whether it's even if it's not a journal, like we just never want to continue to weave things into that culture. We're trying to like, I think, unwind that a little bit and balance it more with like a personal story and like, I don't know, mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had like before we hit record on this particular podcast, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about agency.
Yeah.
In one's life. And it's interesting, right? Because you think about shame-based productivity is I get it. It makes sense, right? Because the idea is that if you're able to push yourself more, you then become more control of your life. You have more self-discipline.
Totally.
You're able to achieve more, and you're also able to feel like you have more agency of your life.
Yes.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Feeling like you're in the driver's seat of your life is an incredible thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would contend that we believe that it's not about the things that you do that gives you agency. It's about the story you tell about yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, who am I? Because it's like, once you figure out who you are, and once you find the nature of who you believe you are, getting the things done is a lot easier because you know what you want to do. Right.
Yeah.
It's
It becomes about self-awareness, not about being productive. Right. Like the productivity thing is like, it's like the equivalent. I'm just making this up as I go. It's like looking only at the speedometer of your car. That's like engaging the health of the entire car based on the speedometer, and thinking that like if the needle is like higher up on the speedometer, like if I'm not going over 100 miles an hour, then like my life isn't what it should be. When in reality, it's like maybe going that fast for a little bit is exciting. Maybe it's going to help you get to where you want to go. It's not sustainable. It's definitely not good for the overall trip. Like I think the self-awareness is knowing what you're working with, knowing what makes you happy, knowing what, pisses you off or makes you tired or, like lights a fire, like whatever it is. That to me is what you said. Like that's trying to figure out what is the story? Like what's the story here? What's the story I've told myself? What's the story I want to tell to the world? Like that is so much richer and so much more sustainable than like, I'm going to wake up before everyone else. I'm going to put in way more hours at work. I'm going to like forego anyone that's holding me back. Like I get that for like, couple weeks. It's just not a sustainable way to live your life. And it doesn't make you a kinder person. Right.
Yeah. Two things. It's like, we're never going to be anti-hard work. That's
right.
not like,
yeah.
It's, but so this is my analogy that I was thinking of, right? It's the Wolf of Wall Street. There's a scene in the Wolf of Wall Street where he takes like a bunch of drugs and then he gets a call and he drives his car.
Yeah.
And he like there's a scene where he like looks back and his car's all pretty and he got home and he's like nailed it.
He's like I can't believe I did that. I was so high. That was crazy.
And then in reality the car's destroyed and the police are there and he's going to jail, right? It's like, that's what it's like. It's like people are saying, well, I got to where I needed to go, but like in reality, like they've ruined like a lot of their self-image on the way there. They've hurt themselves and it's very detrimental. And and I'm not saying that because other people are doing this. I'm saying that because I've done this to myself.
Yeah, me too.
Right. It's like
exactly.
I've set up these insane parameters that worked at a time of life. Even if it was good for me at a time of life, doesn't mean that it continues to stay that way.
Yeah.
And then when I didn't do those things, I would tell myself like, oh, you're lazy now. You're not nearly as strong as you once were or whatever it was.
Yeah.
When in reality, like there's different times for different like seasons in life. And like the narrative that needs to push through that is like, you're the hero of you're the main character of your life. You are the person who is in charge of you. Yeah. No one else can tell you whether or not you're being good or bad. But it would have been nice. Some at one point, someone's like, "Hey, you got this." You know, it's like having a little journal in my pocket that was like, "Hey, like, come back when you need to, but like we're here for you. You're a hero of your life." Like
it's like the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah,
you know? It's so annoying that you have to relearn that as you get older. It's like it's such a simple story that you think it's kind of ridiculous, but the older you get, the more skeptical you get of the tortoise's ability to actually beat a rabbit in a race. But that's not what it's about, right? Like it's about the people that are, you know, zooming past you in traffic, but then like stopping at the same red light that you do, you know, and you're like, it's like, you know, I'm just cruising along. Like I'm just going the speed limit and you're like trying to like beat the system or game the system and you're going to burn out. And like, it's not good for you or for me. It's more dangerous for everyone on the road, you know? I was reminded of this metaphor this morning in our morning meeting. I told it to everyone early on in the journal. Like I was always trying to think like, what is the tone that we speak with, whether it's like an email or it's, you know, like replying to a customer service thing, or it's replying to someone like an Instagram comment or something like that. Like what is a tone that we pick? Because it's not you or I. Like you can't come in here and be like, "Hey, what's up? It's Nick with the Heroes Journal," yada, yada, yada. Like our whole thing is like immersing people into a story so that they can have a really good experience about what their goal is going to be. And so from the beginning, I always had this vision that correlated with the scene from Harry Potter. And, you know, thank goodness it's Magic Month because this is like right on time that I remembered this. But like there was a scene in Harry Potter, I think it's in the 5th one. Harry is he's looking for Slughorn, who's like a professor. He's like disguised as a chair, and this house is like totally ransacked. And he goes in there and he finds him. And then Dumbledore shows up. And so you have Harry and this professor, and then you have Dumbledore walk in, and the place is a mess. And Dumbledore casts a spell, and it cleans the entire room. And the room almost goes like in reverse order from like how it got messed up. The chandelier is broken into like 1,000 pieces, and it all comes together. Like chairs get set back up, like everything gets perfectly set back into piece. Everything is completely organized and beautiful, and almost there's like a sense of like Zen about it. And then it happens, and then Dumbledore turns to Harry and he's like, "That was fun." Like that tone is I've always tried to like kind of instill into our voice as like a brand, like talking to heroes. Like I want to be that kind wizard as a brand that comes along, you know, into a hero story. And like there might be a crazy daunting task, like cleaning up a completely terribly unorganized situation, doing it with a smile on my face, and then turning to them and being like, "That was fun." You know, just like there's like such a kindness about that. There's so many ways to clean a room, and a lot of them have to do with like shame or like overwork or whatever. And I just love how it's like this magical way of organizing things. I get so carried off in my thoughts about that. But anyway, that's to me, it's like that is the perfect example of not being a bully when you could have been.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of growth that even you and I and Zach and Bert and Ryan and John and whoever we work with, it's like, this is not like a stagnant idea, right? This is something that we we have to continue to push for, because it like grounds us in who we are as like the helpful, kind wizard. Yeah. There's probably even things that we've said in this particular podcast that we would look back on in a year and be like, that was wrong.
Yeah. Sure.
Because it's not about like, especially for me, as I think about even operation stuff, right? Things that seem cut and dry, like correct, or this is the way we're supposed to treat someone. Like these things, you have to be able to admit that you did them wrong or right or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that having a core principle that's like that, like dynamic, will help us as we move, and we do what like the dynamic startups do is we pivot and we try to make new products, and we go through failures, we go through successes, and it's all about like, well, when I did that, was I being as much of an ally as I thought I was being?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I thought I was being an ally, but the actual the downside that I didn't see of this product is that it actually was pretty shame based.
Yeah.
And having to come to terms with the fact, and being maybe even like going on a situation like this, or even a talking head video and being like, I messed up.
Yeah.
Like we made this product and it made you guys feel really bad about like whatever it is. Like,
yeah,
it's a scary thing. And it's almost the higher the risk. I mean, it's like the higher the risk, the higher the reward, right? Like,
yeah,
you can build so many things off of telling people, like, in encouraging people, even if we just end up only being a YouTube channel, right? Like where we just like make weekly videos about telling someone that they're dope.
Yeah. Is that our new mission statement?
Yeah. Tell people they're dope.
Tell people they're dope. It's funny. I do feel like the companies that have such a strong culture, and a really powerful and like vivid vision statement, it's actually not really about them achieving that 100% of the time. It's just about having it and kind of trying their best to live up to those expectations. Like the truth is like a vision statement and a mission statement, whatever you want to call it, they're very like idealistic. They're things that are kind of the best case scenario. They're not typically like, the barrier of entry. These are like dream case scenarios.
And they're kind of vague.
Yeah, well, I think that they're kind of designed subjectively and impossible to achieve. Like Microsoft, right? They're like, we want a computer in every desktop in like America or something like that. It's like,
yeah,
you might be able to figure that out, but not really. You know?
I mean, I think they did it, but
maybe. I mean, I guess we do have one in our house.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like they don't actually know that. Or even like SpaceX, it's like occupy Mars. It's like, what does that even really mean? It's like, well, the verbiage of it was set up specifically to be not specific. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is when especially your customers understand what your vision is, when you mess up, like when you fall short of that, it's actually way easier to apologize for it because you know the standard that you're supposed to be meeting, and you know what you're apologizing for. You know what I mean? Like when companies just mess up and they have no baseline for what they should be acting like, it's like, I think people are way harder on them in a weird way. Like I don't know. I guess I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I guess what I'm saying is like, if you're really clear about what you were wanting to do as a company, and you make a product that goes against that, or you make a decision that goes against that, it's not the end of the world. All you have to do is just realign with like what you were trying to do. It's kind of my thought.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think about the Hodinkee desk clock, and I'm trying to figure out why it didn't work.
What's Hodinkee?
So Nick and I really like watches. I wouldn't say we're into horror. Is it horology? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
We're not like horologists.
We don't have nice watches.
Yeah, but we like looking at them.
We just like looking at them and the
anyways,
engineering and all that stuff.
Yeah, the studying of them is
the collectability. We think it's cool. It's probably a terrible and expensive hobby to ever get into, but I think we like thinking that we're into it. Anyway.
Yeah. And they're like they're one of the leading voices in the watch space. I'm not gonna say they
vintage
are
watches.
Vintage watch space.
Yeah.
And they have they sell like super nice watch straps. They have like a little bit of their merch stuff, but they tried to make a big swing. They made this desk clock that just sits on your desk.
Yeah.
Really nice, very well engineered, but it was like ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. It was like a travel clock. I think it was designed like, you take this with you and you bring it to like a hotel.
Yeah.
And then
anywhere you go, anywhere that has a desk, you could put it on there and it'd be like, you have the time.
Yeah. I mean, it was beautifully made.
Yeah.
It just didn't really feel like it made sense for what they do. And it was priced extremely, extremely aggressively.
Yeah. And I think like reading the comments, and you saw more of the comment, you probably dug a little bit more into that kind of particular thing because you told me about it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like you have like a Hodinkee. I got you a Hodinkee watch strap for your birthday, and you were like, "This is really well made." Like you can see the quality of what they do, but just from like thinking back on that particular moment, it's not just that they made a super expensive desk clock.
Yeah.
It was like, why did
you make this?
Because they didn't have anything that supported the fact that they would make this thing,
Right.
which would at the very least give them a level, like something to fall back on for the moment where everyone's like mad at them, and they can be like, "Oh, we did this because we believe in this."
Right.
There never was that.
There was like, never any. Yeah, exactly. It was just kind of like, check this cool thing out, and it didn't make any sense. Yeah. It feels like a betrayal, right?
Yeah.
Like you're a customer, you trust this company to do a certain thing, and then they totally catch you by surprise, and you're like, I trusted you, and you betrayed my trust a little bit.
Yeah. And the more I think about it is, and I still hold Hodinkee in a very high regard. I think they do an incredible job.
Of course.
Their videos are great, and like Talking Watches is like, I think you and I, we watch Talking Watch at least once a month.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But I think my critique of it, and something I don't ever want to do, is it was like a business class case study, where your professor stands in front of you and they go, well, this company had X amount of people on their email list. Mm-hmm. They had X amount of like weekly, monthly users, and they released a product and it didn't work. Why is that? And everyone's sitting there like X, Y, or Z, and it's because it didn't feel like there was a lot of heart behind it. Like they did really fancy, really like clean marketing. They had like really good verbiage around it. The landing page looked great. Had all the technical stuff, but we never understood like what they were thinking, like what they're trying to accomplish. What problem does this solve for me?
It's like trying to look really, really cool in front of the friends you grew up with. You know, everyone's like, "What are you doing?" Like, we don't understand the reason for this. This isn't usual for you. Like, you've kind of betrayed our expectations of you in a weird way. I'm not saying don't dress up in front of your friends, but I guess what I'm saying is like, if you don't have like a good reason to have like a dramatic change in like the way that you act, it's good. It's not going to be accepted very well, you know. Not that that's the same relationship between customers and businesses, but it's like the same kind of human experience. It's like, this was odd. Like, this caught me by surprise. You know?
Yeah, and it's like, on the other side of that is like, tell me why I should care about this.
Yeah.
Right. It's like I believe so. Like education for me and my educational journey wasn't really unlocked until my sophomore year of college.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time I saw why I wanted to learn more.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just getting grades so I could be eligible for sports or so my parents wouldn't ground me. It was like, oh, I actually really enjoy this process. I love learning about these things. I love writing the papers. I love doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I had the first teacher who like told me why I cared about it. And I think, and I don't want to speak too like grandly about the Hero's Journal in that sense, but like, there have been real moments where people have taken ownership over why they love the Hero's Journal and why it's helped them. That's devoid of you and I. It's devoid of anything Bert or Zach have done or Ryan or John. It's them taking agency over their life, using this product and telling themselves they're a hero and seeing real change.
It's true. You know, it's weird as you grow as a business, especially as your customer base grows. This weird, you get a very unique blindness to what's working. Right. We recently had a conversation with kind of a mentor of ours who asked us a very simple question that I don't think we know the answer to, which was like, what's working about the Hero's Journal? You know? Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to pretend like I have an answer to that yet, but I do want to do this. I don't think we've done this before on the podcast. If you are on YouTube, shoot us a comment down below and let us know, like, if you have a journal or even if you just like the content, you know, what is working for you? Like, why do you enjoy it? Why are you partaking in it? Is it because you know, want to hear more about the product? Is it because it helped you? Like, you know, I genuinely am super curious. Even if it's like 2 or 3 comments on this video, I just want to know, like, if you're watching this, what is working for you? Yeah. Or in another way to this, I like the way he said this. His name's Chris. He said, what job does your product do? Yeah. Right? Like let's sweep away all of the general, let's just make it a general, like,
and none of the specifics. Like, what job does the Hero's Journal do for you?
Yeah.
It's
What,
those words.
what do you hire the Hero's Journal to do?
Yeah.
Like, what are you paying for?
Oh, that's such an interesting way to talk about business.
Yeah.
About like every time you go to the store, you're interviewing products to see if they're a culture fit for your life. And like,
everything's an interview process.
Everything's an interview process. Cause it's like,
it's really interesting.
It's another step away from the 5 people you spend the most time with, or you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Right.
It's like you are the average of the 20 products you use the most.
That's super interesting.
And it's like how you can, and how if you were to look at, let's say you carried around a stopwatch every single day of your life.
Yeah.
We might have to do this. I actually think this would be an interesting thing. Carry a stopwatch for one day. And on your phone, you can hit split, right?
Yeah.
So you hit split every time you interact with a different product. And then you pull out your journal and you write down the product that you split at. And then you look at like, okay, so of the 24 hours, I spent 8 hours in my bed. 8 hours bed, pillows, sheets.
Yeah.
I spent 4 hours with my phone. I was looking at like Facebook, Shopify, YouTube, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You do that for all the stuff in your day, one day, 24-hour period. And then you go to the websites of all the companies that produce the products that you spent time with, and you look at their mission statements and to see if they align with how you view yourself in your life. Like, think about how like insane that would be.
Interesting.
And like looking at, you're like, I actually don't agree with the, like I'm wearing a Nike shirt right now.
Right.
Like I agree with a lot of what Nike does, but maybe I don't agree with 100% of their practices. Like, is that something I want to surround myself with?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about that. This is like an epiphany moment, but that'd be a really interesting.
That I know. I'd hate to bring it back to old podcasts. Reading we brought it up at the beginning as a joke, but reading The Infinite Game, it's more of an ethics book. It's like the weirdest thing, but you're right. Like it creates this like this kind of alignment in your life because you're trying to run a business, right? And then you're like, okay, well, what does my business believe in? It's like, well, okay, my business has to stand for something. What do I stand for? Like it really makes you have this entire like epiphany of ethics and like the kind of products you use or like the impact you have on the earth. Like we've been talking a lot about these things that we've never talked about before, because I think we've never really planned for them or really thought about the scope. But it is kind of funny how it's like you think of the business first and then you're like you back up and you're like, I haven't put myself through this litmus test yet, and I wonder what I would do. Yeah.
Like I was telling Nick this. One of the reasons, so we have a bookkeeper. Like I don't have to do the books.
Yeah.
But every month I like dig through our Chase account and I look at all the stuff we spent money on for the month. I just like look through just transactions, and it's like says, oh, like Facebook advertising or FedEx for shipping, or it's like Amazon purchase. We're building a gym right now for the Heroes headquarters, and it really gives me like a grounding feeling. Like, well, this is what we care about. Like, like we just looked over. We didn't look over it completely. We need somebody to do this, but we looked over our like profit and loss statement for all of 2020.
Yeah.
And one of our biggest ticket items was freelance. We spent a lot of money on getting content and assets created for like that would directly go out to our heroes. It's like very like hero facing, very inspirational stuff. And that like aligned to me. That aligned directly for me. I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. We're spending our resources to give our heroes as much information and as much content to both delight them, but also to inspire them to continue thinking of themselves as a hero and to go after their quests.
Yeah.
It's like there are so many ways that you can pay attention that you don't think about in your life about what you care about. And it's really empowering. At least when I think about it, it's really empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but
yeah, because you come at it. I come at it from a financial side. You come at it from like a product side, right?
Yeah, it's just like I think in the simplest sense, especially with a business. I mean, you can do this in your personal life too, but like you care about what you spend money on, whether you know it or not. You don't really have a choice. Like we care a lot about our digital presence, so we have a lot of digital advertising. We have a lot of digital assets that we pay to create. We care a lot about our products. Like it is a nice moment to kind of reflect on the numbers and just be like, okay, these are going in the right bucket. Maybe we're spending way too much money on something we don't actually care about, but we think we care about or we think is important, but maybe it's not important. It's like, I think it's a good filter just to have. It's not the best filter to have on your money and how to balance your business. But from like a non-numbers guy look at things, I try and like lead with my feelings there a little bit.
For those of you who are wondering, most of you probably aren't. That's the difference between GAAP accounting, which is like finances, accountants, and operational accounting, which is like COOs and like operations people. So operational accounting is more like, what do we spend our money on? What's our gross profit margin? Like GAAP accounting is like, are we going to pay our taxes? You know,
we'll see.
Yeah, we're focusing. I get to look at both, but yeah, you can focus more on operational accounting, and I'll make sure we don't go to jail.
Aye, Captain. All right.
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? Because you could talk about this for like hours.
I mean, yeah, we probably will.
And we did. We have been. I mean, that, like Nick and I probably walk 10 to 15 miles a week just like talking about. We live in a really beautiful area. There's like, it's a little selfish. I mean, it's a nice walk, but we talk about who we want to be, what we want to be in the world.
Yeah. Those are our business meetings.
So
right now.
Yeah, we tried to condense that into 45 minutes, but
it's true.
Yeah. Biggest thing, this is more important than subscribing. This is more important than liking the page. This is more important than even buying a Hero's Journal or another one. We want to know like what you like, what job did you hire the Hero's Journal to do? Or what job did you hire our YouTube channel to do?
Yep.
What job did you hire Letter from the Mentor to do? All those things. Leave a comment. Let us know. You can send us an email if you don't want it to be out there in the open.
Yeah.
We're genuinely just like want to know because we believe
putting together a focus group of the most objective people we can try and find that have bought a journal, you know, just to ask that question and a few others. But we're like really digging in, really doing some investigative work because we want to know what's working so we can, you know, align that with what we care about and create meaningful experiences for people. But yeah, I do need to do a quick plug beyond that.
Yeah.
It is Magic Month. So this is our second podcast, kind of dipping into Magic Month. Now, Magic Month is just a bunch of side quests that kind of pave the way into our Kickstarter campaign, which is being launched on February 16th, 2021. We're launching the Astoria Magic Academy. This is a prototype, but it will eventually look something like this. And very soon, we'll probably shoot our Kickstarter video, hopefully, and be able to showcase what the journal looks like and all that stuff. But if you just listen to the podcast, please know that we are releasing a brand new journal, and it is amazing. You're not going to want to miss it. We have a video that explains some of the content that's in there and some of the specs that are more exciting this time around. It's on our channel. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on if you're just tuning in. And we're excited you're here, but we are really, really excited about the Kickstarter. So thanks for tuning in.
On that note, if you want to, go ahead and subscribe to our channel to get more up-to-date information about the Kickstarter and just generally about telling a better, more positive story about your life. If you want to be a part of Magic Month, you can go to the link that is in the description, probably titled Magic Month. And you can go ahead and sign up for that and get going with all of the heroes in the Heroes Quarters.
11,000 heroes.
11,000 heroes. I don't know if all of them are doing Magic Month, but there are 11,000 heroes in the Heroes Quarters.
Yeah.
And if you want to like this video, I would say you probably should do that.
Costs you nothing to like it.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.